Hello, my name is Merlin and this is Painting Windows and Mirror Surfaces, the first of my video tutorial series made possible by your support over Patreon. Let me begin by briefly explaining a few concepts, namely the blending technique and then how to craft the window grid. First, blending for texture and color variety. The tools that we're going to be using are the gouache blending brush and the soft airbrush. So let's start by placing two different marks overlapping each other. They can be close in hue, but it's important that they have some value distinction. And then with the blending brush, the gouache, placed in the middle, we're gonna drag that paint around. And immediately you can see what a great randomizer this tool is. It's essentially almost creating all of these new hues and values. This is lovely, but it can be a little bit too rough. So with the airbrush blender, we're just gonna soften up a few of those edges and go back at it again with the gouache. Just to have that nice variety. Anyways, you can go on and on forever, but at some point you're gonna be happy with it, I hope, and that's it. Next up, crafting the diamond grid. It might look technical, but making this grid is incredibly easy. We'll start with a single diagonal line. Duplicate that line on another layer and place it at a small distance. Merge those two layers and duplicate again. When placing them on top, make sure one of the lines is overlapping another. This will ensure consistent spacing. Repeat this process a few times, and when you have a nice pattern going, duplicate and flip horizontally. You can now cut out the excess. Technically, you could stop here, but there's one last step that I think really sells it, and that consists on duplicating the grid, setting it to the brightest white, and then placing it underneath the black grid and just moving it a tiny little bit. And that really makes this incredibly realistic effect, like light is actually hitting the grid from the side and behind it. I don't know, it's just really lovely. And it's a tiny detail, but I think it's definitely worth it. So now that I've explained what I'll be doing during this time lapse, I'm just gonna chill and comment over it and share a few thoughts. Let's start with the reference. The reference was really the beginning of it all. It's really great. I was looking for windows for a school on a project of mine, and it has some magic and religious elements. So I straight up went looking for churches, and I found this reference that was absolutely perfect. Because it's not too complicated, it's just the right amount of intricate yet easy to reproduce. And I think a thing that I really loved while observing this photograph was the little inconsistencies in the glass. Some little pieces are brighter and others have different colors. It's a very nice detail to play up. Colors are also uh, enhanced because this image is a bit gray and dull. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if it was a beautiful day outside and there was some sort of garden on the other side that you couldn't quite make out, but it's implicit because of the colors and stuff. But yeah, it's great to have references like this because then you can take your cues on light and reflections, and it's all very easy because again, most of the work is done for you. You just have to make it beautiful. I like to use a lot of glowing layers that are mostly color dodge and stuff like that. This is the point where I decided to make two more versions of the same window at different times of the day. The midday sun was very easy. Those beautiful glowy oranges. It was just really easy. Plain old overlay and color dodge layers and call it a day. The Twilight one, however, was completely the opposite. There was a lot of push and pull because I didn't want it to look too dark because I was afraid that it wouldn't read. So I was working on it and I was imagining that we could have some street lamps outside that were illuminating the scene a little bit more, just so I could get away with putting more light in there. Now, here I've duplicated the end results of my windows to create this 3-panel situation, but you'll notice how I go in some of the crystals and lines and I'm manually creating inconsistencies to differentiate them. I I seriously doubt anyone is gonna look at it that hard and be like, oh, look at that. It was duplicated 3 times. What a lazy bum. If I didn't do this, but I do it for myself. I just think it looks nicer if I put in the extra time to take care of details like that, and it really adds another layer of expensiveness to it. And I think at this stage in the whole image, I'm just in this zen moment where I'm not really thinking about anything. I'm just beyond the moment. Oh, that's the transformation tool. That's perspective. I tweaked a little bit. Um, this is a completely different project. I was designing a building inspired by New York during the 90s, and I wanted to design the door of the building our main characters live in. And again, I did a lot of research. This was painted from life. This is a cafe in Ireland. I went to visit a friend and have some hot chocolate, and I noticed this lovely humidity in the windows that did all this nice light distortion, and I really wanted to capture that feeling of being in a really hot place when it's cold and dark outside. I don't know, just it looks beautiful to me. We went to the Irish National Gallery and I took this photo that I'm using for reference. Not this one, the other one. But I was very impressed by this huge old mirror. At some places, it had this thin layer of opacity and cracks that were so pleasing to see. They had a lot of texture, and As you can see over here, I've experimented a little to come up with a custom brush with that effect. This video was made possible thanks to the Baby Bunnies, Sprouts, and Proud Tigers at Patreon, where you can access extra content and support this series.